Welcome. We're glad you're here today. My name's Dawn Rowe Millard, and I'm going to talk to you about sensei leadership, which is all about the application of martial arts practices. And today the focus is on cultivating impactful relationships, which I think in human resources is one of the critical skills we need to have. Not just relationships in taking care of our employees, but relationships with our peers, relationships with leaders across the organization. And so that's the topic for today. So if you're in the wrong session, you got to go that way. Okay? So thank you for being here. How many of you have practiced martial arts? Oh, good. So you'll know what I'm talking about. It'll be easy. For those of you that haven't practiced martial arts, some of the topics may be somewhat foreign, but most of us know. We've seen karate and we've seen judo or jujitsu and some of those different martial arts. So what I have done is I've taken the philosophies around that, some of that, and applied them to what I do in the workplace. And I'm hoping that this will be helpful to you. So who am I? Oh boy, yeah, no, I'm not going to go through all this. You can find me on LinkedIn under Dawn L. Rowe or Dawn Rowe Millard. You can do a search. You know, I've been in the HR field for quite a long time. In the last 10 to 15 years, most of it was in leadership development, which is a passion for me. And so I'm not going to go into detail on this, but suffice it to say that I've been around the block. So I've been around and I've probably experienced almost everything you are experiencing or have experienced as well at some point in time in my career. So we're going to go to this place where we talk about relationship. And I learned a lot about relationship from my sensei, who is also a cultural anthropologist. Her name's Angeles Arian, and she's the late Angeles Arian. She's no longer with us, but she was a great teacher and a great sensei, and I learned a lot from her, which has really helped me in my career in HR. Currently, I'm the VP of HR at Aboda by Reside, and also Reside Worldwide is the parent company. We do corporate housing. There's some brochures in the back if you're interested in those. There's also a handout in the back, which I'll mention a little bit later as well. So when I talk about relationship, what I'm talking about is the state of being connected with another human being. And if you think about it, Chris Dornfield, who's the chief operating officer of a major corporation, basically has a blog. And what he said is, relationships in the workplace matter more than you think. And the primary factors are interaction, how we communicate and how often we communicate, and relatedness, what people have in common and how we share what we have in common. So when I think about relationship, what I'm talking about is your relationship with yourself, because there's three forms, right? It's not just relationship with one other. It's relationship with yourself, it's relationship with one other, and then it's your relationship in a group setting, either in a team meeting or in a staff meeting or in a formal forum such as where we are today. So, when we talk about martial arts practices to cultivate impactful relationships, we go to two opposing sides of a coin. We go to fear and trust. And those are two key things that happen in the workplace that we, in creating and crafting relationships, need to pay attention to. If someone is acting out, someone's mistreating you, someone's misbehaving, 95% of the time, it's because they're coming from a place of fear. Something scares them. And in order to have great relationships in the workplace, you have to build trust so people want to work with you. And that's a key factor when we're talking about human resources and working. So my big idea in this whole program is really that in order to build trust, you have to remove fear. And in martial arts, in order to be a good martial artist, you can't be afraid. You have to stay centered and calm in the storm. And so again, relationship is rooted in respect and trust as well. And I like this idea or this concept of respect. So what breaks down trust? Anybody? Say louder. Lack of respect. What else breaks down trust? Dishonesty. What else do you find breaks down trust? Anger, when you're mad. Yeah, what else? Greed. Yeah, it's all about me and I'm trying to get the power in the organization. Yeah, I'm hungry for power. Absolutely. Anything else? Yes. Yes, talking behind the back of somebody as opposed to going directly to them to solve a problem. Gossiping. Yes. What else? Yeah. Unreliability. Yes. Lack of communication. Absolutely. Anybody else? I saw a hand go back in the back. Hand go up in the back? No? Okay. So we know what breaks down trust. How do we build trust? We build it by focusing on respect, number one. First. Okay, so when we think of martial arts and we think of the first thing that the student and the sensei, who is the teacher, do, what is the first thing when they see each other? They bow. Absolutely. You know the answer to this, right? And in fact, if you see Asian, Japanese people meet in business, they will actually bow to one another. And in many of the Asian countries, they'll do that. So it's really important to take a minute and think about how you do that. I'm going to pull this down and I'm going to put up a video. Hopefully it'll work.
So feeling where you are is the doorway. It's the most important thing you can do. It just becomes a presence, an energy that has a capability, that perceives the world in a different way. It has a more sensitive understanding of the energies of the situation. It doesn't just see the physical. It doesn't just feel the physical energies. It feels the energies that are activating the physical.
This is Aikido, and you can see that he's using their energy going with the flow.
At a coarser level, I just feel the coarser energies. But as soon as I shift to a finer dimension, I begin to feel subtler levels of energy moving. The essence of Aikido starts with just being here. Just being here is the process that leads to the creative world, or where you start to perceive the next level or the next finer dimension. So, and you probably are noticing and feeling at a certain level, and if you take another deep breath, notice what happens as you do. Mind starts to interpenetrate the body even more, and you become more sensitive, more aware. Or we might say you're now in a finer dimension. It always exists, but in a tight space, it might as well not exist. You can't hear it, you can't apply it, you can't use it. And there's something about simply bringing your attention to focus on what you're experiencing. At a coarser level, I just feel the coarser energies. And
so you can see that it's a lot about awareness when you think about the martial arts and applying them to what we're doing here. All right, so it's about respect, but it's also about being self-aware, and it's about sitting back for a minute and saying, how am I feeling in this moment? And understanding and trusting what that feeling is. In Aikido, he wasn't telling them where to go. They just had to follow wherever his hand went, right? It looks almost contrived, does it not, in that video? But the reality is, if you understand the energy in the room, you can apply it accordingly. Same thing when you're dealing in relationship with another person. How many of you have been in a situation with another person where you could just feel anger or angst or upsetness? Yeah, you feel it in your gut, right? That's where you feel it. Creating and cultivating great relationships using martial arts philosophies is about sensing what's happening in the moment, and then you can adapt your behaviors to what needs to happen to cultivate and keep that relationship sound. If somebody's going to be upset with me, I'm going to step back and I'm going to listen and I'm going to diffuse. Right? I'm not going to create more angst. I'm going to diffuse to keep the relationship on an even path. All right, so respect is about holding someone in high esteem. It's about honoring someone. And how many of us want respect when we're in the workplace? Yes, thank you for your hands. Absolutely. We all want to be respected for the work that we do. So anytime we disrespect someone, how do we feel? Not very happy, right? So it's really important to cultivate respect and to practice respect, practice honoring someone, holding them in high esteem. Maybe you don't hold them in high esteem, but you can still behave as if you do, or you can behave as if you show them honor and respect for their position or their point of view. So I like this slide because it talks about cultivating trust. And remember, we talked about fear and trust as the two opposite sides of the coin in the beginning. And to cultivate trust, you have to remove the fear. And where do you see fear? You see fear in ignorance, when people don't understand the full story, the full picture. You see it when they're in a place of judgment, when you're being judged. You see it in positionality, when they take a position and they refuse to budge. And you see it when they want to control you. If they want to control you, or they're judging you, or they're taking a hardline position with you, they fear something. It all goes back to fear. So ask yourself in those moments, what are they afraid of? Or ask them, what are you afraid of? Why won't you change? Why won't you consider this? And you can have that conversation. Now, if you notice, in a trusting environment, there are 4 areas that are kind of opposite that. There's transparency instead of ignorance. You're willing to say what is so for you when it is so. There's objectivity instead of judgment, right? Caring deeply from an objective place. There's flexibility instead of positionality. I'm willing to be open to hearing what you have to say, even though I might feel differently. And then there's empowerment instead of control. Now, how many of you want to have a workplace where your employees feel empowered? Yeah. And don't we all want to be empowered? Absolutely, we do. I certainly want to be empowered. I don't want to be controlled. Nobody wants to be controlled, right? Where do we find control? Who's the common practitioner of control in a workplace? Someone you see a lot of on occasion. Anybody know? Mr. Micromanager? You familiar with Mr. Micromanager? Yeah, usually they're afraid to let go of control, right? And so in order to do that, you have to build trust with them, okay? So why don't we trust? If you think about the opposite of fear is courage. You have to have courage. And in martial arts, if you think back to some of the stories, maybe you've seen The Karate Kid, where he has to have courage to go into the fight even though he's hurt his leg, and where he's fighting the kids that are doing that are with the bad dojo. And you've seen that before, right? How many of you have seen Karate Kid? Okay, some of you may have seen the new Karate Kid, because I looked online and they're both out there now. But in any event, the opposite of a lack of trust is trust, and the opposite of fear is courage. And in order to have courage and to gain trust, you have to be willing to extend trust. You have to give that person a chance. And that means what? We have to be vulnerable. We won't be able to control the outcome. And in the workplace, a lot of times we can't control the outcome. And control is an illusion. It's just an illusion. If you look at the Karate Kid and you look at the dojo and the mean sensei with the kids that were, preying on Daniel-san, in that movie, they were trying to control the outcome. But it was just an illusion at the end of the day. All right, so some of you say, okay, I'm extending trust, I'm being vulnerable, I'm opening up to this person, and he's a snake, or she's a snake, or she's just out for power, or just out for herself, she doesn't really care, I don't trust her, or him. We're gonna meet some snakes along the way. People who misuse power, that happens. So when you recognize that, and you will recognize it because you'll feel it in the pit of your stomach, you'll know. When you recognize that, you can use martial arts concepts to address that. So you can, if you were a martial artist, you can go fight directly with the person, right? You can use your martial arts skills and you can combat on the mat, right? So you can address it directly. You can also get bitten and die if you do that, right? If you address a snake directly, you're going to get bitten. So you may not want to choose to do that. If you're going to do it that way, you want to have someone who can suck out the venom. So be prepared. The other option is you can go around the snake. You can take a different path. Oftentimes I've done that over my career where I've met somebody who was just unwilling and unable to work and do a good job. And so I had to go around and find another way to get what I needed done. You can also lead the snake in a different direction. So you can continue on your path and influence the snake to follow you somewhere. So in the real world, you can do that as well. Or you can ignore the snake and keep going, right? But if you're going to do that, it's best to have a stronger position or be on higher ground in the organization. So sort of, I like the metaphor of the snake because God knows we don't like, how many of you like snakes? I don't know. I don't like snakes. I hate snakes. Okay. All right. So you see that. All right. So 3 fears impact our relationships. First is the loss of control. When we feel like, oh my God, we're not gonna be able to get the result we want, and that's the micromanager. That's when you see someone who's a perfectionist and nothing's ever good enough. That's someone when they're doing a power grab. Those people are in a place of fear of loss of control, right? Or fear of failure. The second fear is the fear of being embarrassed. You might see someone who doesn't want to give you information, doesn't want to share with you their secret. They're afraid of being seen as incompetent. They're unwilling to allow mistakes or make mistakes. That's someone who's afraid of being embarrassed. And the third one is the fear of being disrespected. Lack of consideration. You'll see they don't give consideration. They're not very kind. Oftentimes they make blatant statements. They disregard people. That comes from a place of fear of being disrespected. So I'm going to give you some practices, some actions you can take. And if you happen to come in on your way in, those 3 fears, fear of loss of control, fear of being embarrassed, and fear of being disrespected, are on the job aid. So I give you some things to do in the wake of that situation, any of those situations that are part of the martial arts philosophies that I think will be helpful to you. So what are the practices? There are 10 that I'm sharing with you today. Self-awareness, respect, vision, clarity, and art of discernment, organizational sincerity, right use of power and influence, directional clarity, courage or heart, art of detachment, honorable intent, and honorable closure. And all of these come from martial arts philosophies. So the first one is, why isn't it going? There it is. Self-awareness. Now, if you think about Aikido, in the Aikido martial arts philosophy, the first thing is to be aware. You saw in that video that he said you just need to sit quietly and be aware of what's happening. So balance, presence, and creativity are 3 key areas of self-awareness. I love this video by, I'm going to put another one up, if you bear with me here. I'll put another one up. And it's from The Last Samurai.
Please forgive. Too many mind.
Too many mind?
Hi. Mind the soul. Mind the people watch. Mind the enemy. Too many mind. No mind.
No mind. mind, no mind. How many times do we let our head get in the way of what we're trying to do? So being able to stay calm and balanced under pressure, that's about you knowing how you're feeling in the moment, wherever you are, whether you're with a group or whether you're by yourself or whether you're in a room like this. The presence of mind to understand how you're feeling, because that will also impact your behavior. All right, so the second one is vision clarity, which is the art of discernment. Anybody know what the art of discernment is? Being able to see what is so when it is so. So if you think of Daniel's son, and he's complaining about these boys, I recently saw an argument that said that Daniel's son was the attacker, that it wasn't the guys from the other dojo. So it's interesting if you go back and look at that. Was he the one attacking and protecting the girl? The girl didn't want anything to do with him. So it's interesting. But it's seeing what is so when it is so, stating what is so when it is so, not being afraid to take a position, not being afraid to say what is so for you, and then seeking to understand other people's points of view. That's how you get to clarity when you're working in the workplace and you're creating relationships. And the ability to do that and maintain the relationship at the same time is really critical. And I also have this 4-point scale when I'm thinking about when people are talking to me. It gives me a clue of what their intentions are and what they really mean. Because sometimes people will say something and it's not what they're really meaning. Ever heard of a question asked that was really a statement? Wow, you look good today, don't you? Right? Or whatever the statement is, right? That somebody makes. A lot of times people will make statements in the form of a question. So I like the 4 points here. There are 4 levels of messaging, and the first is what is actually said. Sarah really upsets me. She doesn't come into work on time, and it really frustrates me. So what is meant by what is said? What I mean is that I can't get my work done when Sarah's in late. That's what my real message is to you. And the third one, the intent of the message is to get Sarah in trouble so that she'll start coming in on time. And the fourth piece is the hidden agenda. It kind of makes Sarah look bad. Yeah. So there are 4 levels of messaging that you need to be looking for all the time when somebody says something to you in the workplace. Because if you don't understand what the real message is, you could be caught by that. A lot of times people are caught by gossip. My recommendation is if you're going to gossip about someone, to say something positive to them. Say something positive, actually, not to them directly. Say to someone else. God, I really love the way that Sarah runs the front desk. She does an amazing job there. But I don't say it to Sarah. I say it to 3 other people. What are they going to do with that information? Maybe share it with someone else, right? You know, Don really thinks Sarah's amazing, right? Maybe they're going to share it in a positive way. So the negative works the same way. If you say something negative, it will get around. So why not focus on the positive is what I say. All right. Organizational sincerity is integrity, which is saying what you mean and doing what you say. And straight talk, and telling the truth to yourself and others gently when it hurts. Honey, do you like this dress on me? No, honey, you look fat in that dress. Okay, do I want to hear that? No. But can he tell me gently? Can he say, well, honey, I think that other dress is a lot prettier. You look really great in that dress, right? There are ways to tell the truth without necessarily hurting somebody's feelings. So you have to think about that if you want to maintain the relationship. Again, we're maintaining the relationship. And if you are out there in the world, I want you to consider this concept of the right use of power. A lot of people have power and they misuse it, and that's what makes us feel bad, right? That's what makes people angry. That's what frustrates people in the workplace. So people can choose to cultivate a relationship with you or not. They can choose whether it's going to be positive, neutral, or negative. And generally, coercive power is negative and doesn't help you. It doesn't last for very long. So I don't recommend using power except in the right uses for good. Okay. So when we think about martial arts, you're like, how does this apply to martial arts? Okay. We're thinking about the concepts and philosophies behind the practice of martial arts, because it is a practice. And they have what they call a kata, which is the exercises they do where they practice the dance of karate or judo or taekwondo. And at the end of the day, many of the martial arts have turned into more of a force fighting as opposed to Aikido, which is kind of a go with the flow. So if you think about Taekwondo, it's about putting pressure on and using force to keep somebody down on the mat. If you think about Judo, it's about throwing someone down, using a joint or lock, striking them. If you think about Sun Tzu and what he said about the art of war, it's always about your enemies and keeping them close. And I think I would recommend turning your enemies into friends if you can. But if they're a snake, of course, you have to use those other 4 options. But I'm a big fan of Aikido in the workplace, and certainly from an HR standpoint, because Aikido is about going with the flow. I'll give you a good example. I first joined my company a couple years ago, and they had a practice of doing recognition using what they called these bucks, whatever, Boda bucks, right? So they were giving away these bucks to people, and the program wasn't tracked, and it wasn't very solid, and I didn't think it was really driving recognition and performance, and I really wanted to change it, but nobody was interested in changing it at that time. So what did I do? I went with the flow. I said, okay, I'm going to work on other things. But in the back of my mind, I wanted to change that program because I knew we needed to make a better program. And then something happened. I forget exactly what it was. Some things changed in the business. And one of the directors came to me and said, we need a better program. And I went, yes! Now I can put something. I had somebody who opened the door for me to make that change. And we have actually put in a brand new program that's working very well to recognize people, and we track it and all of that. So sometimes patience matters. Sometimes going with the flow matters. Waiting for someone to give you that door to open, but always being on the lookout for that as an HR practitioner is going to help you as you move forward. So when I think about directional clarity, you have to give people a direction. Where are they going to go? This is where the snake, you want to lead them where you want them to go. You have to establish an end goal and explain it to others so that others can go where you want them to go. And you have to help them get there, because if they don't know where you want to go, they can't help you, right? So courage. Courage is a willingness to act in spite of fear. Remember I said that the opposite of fear is courage? So in order to take those steps, sometimes you have to have courage. And one exhibition of courage is the ability to be fully present. You are all here in this moment. How many of you are on your phones? How many of you are somewhere else thinking about what you're going to make for dinner? How many of you are thinking about, oh my God, something's going on at the workplace I should be focused on instead of here in this room? It's really quite amazing to meet someone who, when you're talking to them, they are talking to you and no one else exists in the room. I've actually met some people like that. They have this amazing sense of presence. We have the strong and open-hearted, the 4-chambered heart. You have to have heart if you're going to be successful. I think I have 15 minutes. 15 minutes? Yeah. So I have the art of detachment, which is to allow yourself to be free, to let go of what should be, and embrace uncertainty. And that's about remaining open to outcome, but not attached to outcome. So no mind, as the guy said in The Last Samurai. And then honorable intent is really about assuming honorable intent. When I go into a dojo and I'm with my sensei or I'm with another student sparring, when I'm in there, What am I assuming? I'm assuming honorable intent. I'm assuming they're not trying to hurt me on purpose, but we're practicing the katas, right? Or we're practicing the combat moves. So I'm assuming honorably that they're not trying to hurt me when I go into that practice. Same thing in the workplace. When I work with someone, they might make a mistake now and again or say something they really didn't mean. That happens. But if I assume honorable intent, you can oftentimes repair the relationship and move on. Then you can forgive the minor missteps that people make. And then the last piece is honorable closure. And this is a practice that's really important to do whenever there's an ending in relationship. And sometimes that relationship can continue in a different way. So if you had a breakup with somebody, for example, you would want to do honorable closure with that person so that you can have a nice way of ending the relationship. I ended a relationship using honorable closure over 25 years ago. I dated someone for 5 years and it just wasn't working out. We had to break up. And I used this practice to actually kind of end the relationship. And actually we agreed to start a different kind of relationship, which was a friendship. And we've been friends since then. So I'm going to tell you what those 4 practices are. The first thing, there are 4 practices of honorable closure. And the first thing is learning, or, what have I learned from you? So you ask these questions of your partner or the person that you want to keep the relationship going with, and they get to say the same thing back. Well, what did I learn from you? You share that. The second one is gratitude. Where do I thank you for the things that you've taught me? Or where do I have gratitude? Where did I appreciate you, right? And the same thing, that other person will then share their gratitudes for the relationship. Third thing is, where did you have a positive impact on me? What was the impact on me? And the fourth is reparation. Do I have to apologize for anything? Did I do anything I shouldn't have done? And if you have that conversation and your partner has the same thing back with you, that will help you walk through the transition of an ending, any kind of ending. Many times this is also good if somebody is close to dying, for example. Maybe you didn't have a great relationship. You have an opportunity to have that conversation. It can make a huge difference. And then there are the 4 immutable laws, which I absolutely adore. Whoever shows up is exactly the right person. So whenever you're in a relationship, that person is exactly the right person, or the people in the room are exactly the right people to be here. So you're all the right people who are here today at this time. The second thing is, whenever he or she shows up is exactly the right time. So today was the right time to have this conversation. Whatever happens is the only thing that could have happened. Okay, so you didn't see one of the videos I wanted to show you. That happens, and when it's over, it's over. So thank you very much. I hope you learned a few things today. If you want more information, there are business cards in the back. There's a job aid in the back, and I wish you all the best of luck in cultivating relationships in the workplace going forward.